Hi everyone. So here we are again, me and Alap, and we are going to speak about point number 8. In this episode, we'll be talking about something very interesting and probably something which has not been spoken much. It's about how to deal and how to work with female athletes. Okay, and what are the real world issues that have to be kept in mind, and what is it that is different when you work with females compared to male athletes. So the first thing and the most clear thing that you have to always remember is that no matter what you work in as a professional, whether you're a physio, you're a doctor, you're a coach, trainer, whatever you do, the most important thing is to remember that you are a man and the female athlete is a female first. So before the female athlete is a world champion or a state champion or is a um, basketball player or a swimmer or whatever, she is a woman first. Now, in the recent past, we have all seen, how the case of the U.S. Gymnastics doctor who was there with the team, and even more recently, the Korean sports coach who has been convicted. And there's loads of cases of such, abuse that takes place. And we have to understand that, these are mistakes that are made, and these are abuses that are done by men. This is the reason why it becomes so scary, and this is the reason why. Uh, those who are working in this field have to understand that this is a reality. And now, why I bring this topic up, why I bring this point up of you being a man, is because one of the most basic instincts that a man has is to look at a woman, especially if she's attractive and if she's got a good body. It is about looking at the body. Okay, this is, if I may put it, and cut down straight to the chase, I would say this is what men do right from the time they're in school, in college. They look at women. Okay, it's one of the most natural instincts out there, And while working with athletes, okay, the thing that happens for a lot of men, especially those who maybe have not been, too much exposed to hanging around with female friends when they grew up, there are three things that they encounter. One, the fact that these female athletes that they work with have very good bodies, okay, because they're obviously fit, they have toned muscles, their bodies will be sort of much more physically built than the average woman out there. The second thing that they would encounter is that these female athletes would be wearing clothes which you wouldn't see the average girl wearing outside. Okay, so shorts, small skirts, tights, okay, swimming costumes. So obviously, this is something that you wouldn't see out on the streets. So again, for a man who comes in there, when he sees that, he has to understand that this is done not because they want to sort of show off. This is part of their sport. The outfits are a requirement of the sport. Okay. The third point that again becomes very strange for some guys to handle is that the man is in a power position here. Okay, so one, you have attractive bodies. Second, you have them wearing clothes which sort of exposes the bodies. Okay, and then you are in a powerful position, where you are seen as, you become sir. In the Indian context, as a coach, you would be called sir. Now you have to understand the first two things. Okay, the bodies that are built, okay, the outcome of those bodies, being good and fit, is not for you. Okay, you are not some Brad Pitt that the girls want to sort of impress. Okay, you're just a coach. Okay, who's got a job which has to be done. The small sort of shorts that they wear or the skirts that they wear and play is again not to impress you. Okay, it is again because it's part of their sport. It's for comfort of movement. Okay, and the third fact that you are in a power position is because it's your job, and it's culturally, in India especially, a coach is seen as a guru. So then people call you, sir. It's again not because you've been knighted by the Queen of England. Okay, you're not some God's gift to women that they want to impress you. You have to remember this, and this is the reason why I brought this point straight up first. Okay, that you have to remember you're a man and they are women, but they are not doing anything to impress you. They, on the street, if they didn't know you, they wouldn't even look at you twice.
So yeah, completely agree with you, Declan, on this. I think it's a very interesting topic in the sense that we don't address this issue much, or again, like we always have been discussing in our earlier talks, that these things are not taught in the universities. So from the point of view of physio, I feel there are some key things that one should do as a physio. Uh, Firstly, you have to be very, very communicative about what you want to do before you start a session. especially even if it's say a small stretching session where you're not really going to even say you don't even want to disrobe the athlete for treating. Say it's not like a soft tissue release session. Even then, just talking about what you're going to do and sort of conveying what your plan is before you enter that step, take that step ahead towards your female patient or athlete is important. Secondly, having an environment which involves one more female attendant if it's a closed area, sort of like if it's a treatment room, it's absolutely imperial that you have someone who's a female with you while you are doing that session, even again if you don't have to disrobe the patient, even then. uh, and secondly, try, if that's not going to happen, as far as possible, because it's like it's in practical scenarios, especially sports physios working on the field, it's almost impossible, so in such instances it's important to treat female athletes in common areas where other people are around you, so other teammates are around you, maybe the coaches are around you.
Absolutely. I would say, maybe to add to just what you said, I had spoken to my brother and I said, as a surgeon, when he sort of does surgery and assessments, what is it? So he said two things that they do. One is first is to inform and then consent, take consent. So both. Once they are done, then you move forward. And I asked him, and he gave me some interesting examples. He said when his sort of been in England and he's done his practice there, it's very different. And then he's of course also had practice in Muscat. And he says culturally they are so different. There could be someone in Muscat, a woman who might be very sort of conscious of her body, even just to expose the arm. She's wearing a burqa, and for her to explain, her husband would be with her. But it's very important, he said, that you have to first inform very clearly in clear language. Sometimes if it's a different nationality or different state, it's very, very important to explain very clearly. And then comes the point of consent. You have to explicitly take consent, that it's very clear that okay, this is what I'm doing, and are you okay with it? Now coming to the sort of a gym setup, what happens in the gym setup is that when women are training, I think some rules that I follow and I get my assistants to follow, and even when I teach, I tell the guys to follow, is being very aware of positions. When say a female athlete or even a regular woman who's training, and if you make them do deadlifts, for example, stiff leg deadlifts where they're bending forward or bent over rows, you do not stand behind them, nor do you stand in front. Okay, always a standard rule is to stand by the side. Okay, because they should be knowing where you are, and they should not be finding you in a position where they feel they are uncomfortable or parts of their body are exposed. So if someone's wearing a t-shirt, and they are bending over and doing an exercise, stand to the side. Very simple. Don't stand in front. It will make them feel uncomfortable, and it would make you feel uncomfortable. And probably a simple way to get the right answer for a strength coach in such situations is, what would you want if your sister joined a gym and she was training, or your daughter? Okay, what would you want the trainer to do when he or she was especially coaching your sister? Would you be comfortable if he stood in front and she was doing an exercise where she's bent over, or she's doing something, he's standing behind? You wouldn't feel great. Exact same you have to do. I think that always puts things in perspective. So when you work with very high end clients, some of these clients might be very free, as into with their bodies. They're very comfortable. Some might be, but still you have to understand that that is done for themselves. They would maybe be comfortable in wearing a sports bra and jogging on a treadmill in a gym. It's because they are comfortable. Okay, you still have to respect their dignity. Okay, no matter who it is. And I think if that is realized, then a lot of things fall into place automatically. Okay. So now, when we look at our roles, there are basically three things that we do, which would kind of apply to females. And one is the look, how you look or you see them. Second is how you talk to them. And third is how you touch them if need be, when you're doing a stretch or something. Before this video, I spoke to a lot of different female athletes, right from national champions in various sports, to Olympians, to people who've been, right at the top in world rankings. The one common thing that all of them have said, is that with some professionals, okay, some male professionals, they said the one thing is the look. They said they feel very uncomfortable when they're playing or when they're doing something and someone's sitting on the outside of maybe the ring or the practice range or the swimming pool. The look that comes from these men, again, and though these men are professionals, but at that moment, the way they look at their bodies, they all said this is something they feel very, very uncomfortable. This was like the common thing I found across all of them. And again, it comes back to what I said in the beginning, the fact that basically it's a male and it's a female. But here the male has forgotten what's his role. He's a physio or a trainer or a nutritionist, psychologist, whatever, or a coach. And I think this is important. It is very, very important to realize this aspect that, yes, acknowledge it first, that you're a male. And this is how maybe outside you see a very attractive young girl walking around, especially if you're a young physio or trainer who's maybe 25, 26, and then the athlete or any woman is around in that age group of 20, you would look, because you're in that age group. At my age now, maybe in my late 40s, I'm sort of a bit more settled, I would say, and the mind is a bit more mature and much more clearer. You have to understand that over there, you're paid for a job. You're there in a very trustworthy position. When you come to work, okay, you have to leave your personality at home. You have to leave your hormones at home. You have to leave your male side at home. You have to leave everything at home. Okay. And when you come to work, it is just a professional who comes there. Maybe sometimes you could call that being a very cold approach, but that is what it is.
So I agree with you, Declan, completely, and very correctly you put it in context for especially trainers and even physios. Especially, it's important for a physio to remember that even if it's a female body that you're looking at, if you keep your mind clear about what you're looking at, it's almost going to get translated in a very similar manner, and then the athlete, the female athlete, or in case of a female physio and a male athlete, they are going to be not feel awkward in front of you. And like you said, Declan, I mean, as a physio, there is no alternative but to see a movement very closely, to have to touch a patient at uncomfortable areas, if that has to be put that way. As a physio, you are trained to have a precise and definitive touch, and you have to exercise that. Let alone with even female athletes, even with male athletes, you have to exercise that. One small mistake in this area, and then your whole career can get ruined. If you feel you're not confident of treating or approaching a certain area, there are multiple ways you can address it. For example, say you have to treat an inner thigh and you're not comfortable about treating an inner thigh of a woman as a male physio. You could ask them to foam roll. You can ask them to release it with the ball. You can there could be 100 ways to tackle, 100 ways to kill a cat, let's say. There's no shame in doing that. A woman will respect you more if you attended to those insecurities, especially with every woman athlete you will have a different experience. So some women athletes may not want to be comfortable with like you said, culturally a lady from Muscat can be differently treated to say a lady from London who's been brought up in a very different area or culture. Again, in India, we have such varied, cultures. Like someone from an urban background may be used to, going to physios from the day of her junior days, as a kid, as a child athlete. But someone who comes from, say, the remote areas or villages has probably not seen that side of the world, and then suddenly here she finds herself in an area which she feels vulnerable stepping into. And in fact, clinicians who have been more effective, they would compared to those, they will remember the clinicians who've been safe with who've
exactly.
been safe. Just to add about while treating someone in a cabin, again, it's something to do with the same within the same point sort of that we are discussing. always keep talking about what you're doing, especially if the patient is, as I said, cannot see you or while you're treating. It's always difficult uh, if there is a silence in the room when you're doing something. I feel as a clinician, I have always felt silence to be very, very disturbing, especially in such scenarios.
In this, I think I'd probably add that when a coach or a physio or whoever, especially the young ones, and even older ones like me, probably, who are there, uh, you have to realize that, you have to be doing your job and not to think of yourself as some stud muffin just because, there are some 10 girls from the women's team who all travel with you, and they're sort of, you could go out for dinner and there's all these girls, and you've gone out as a team and you're one of the few males. And if you happen to be young, like I said, you're not some, Casanova who's come there with his women. Okay. And in this, on the cultural point, I would say that culturally, the woman can be different. And you could also have come from a different culture. As a male, I mean, somebody could have come from a very conservative culture, where he or his sisters, his mothers have been sort of wearing clothes in a certain way. Could be very westernized, could be very traditional. Okay, it's not right or wrong. Whether your family has been living a conservative lifestyle or Western, that's your choice. Okay, don't bring it to work. Okay. So this you have to remember, just because your sister dresses a certain way, talks a certain way, these girls don't have to. These are independent professionals. You're dealing in a professional manner. Keep your personality, your culture, what your caste you come from what community you come from, what religion, keep it at home. Don't bring it to work. Okay. Because then things become very easy. And if sometimes as a man, if you've grown up maybe in a school, college which was mainly males, and you didn't have maybe as many female friends as males, again, that's fine. That's your life. But when you get into a scene, you shouldn't go out there thinking that no, these are girls who are all young and they come and respect me and they look up to me and they sort of talk to me. It's only because you're in a power position, which shouldn't really be. And overseas, for those physios and those trainers who haven't probably worked overseas or been overseas and seen the culture there, over there, of course, you're not called a sir. You could be a coach and you could be probably 60 years old and you'll still be called by your first name. You could be John or Mark or Peter, or that's how it is. It's because you're an equal. We should not get carried away when just because kids come and say call you sir. Okay. And this can be very sort of it can be overwhelming for a young physio or trainer who ends up in the field of sport and suddenly he's been given so much respect. The parents come and talk to you and they call you sir, they talk about their children, and you're suddenly in a power position where you feel like, whoa, people are respecting me. Don't think of yourself as maybe you're some great guru or something. Okay. And on the same lines, maybe something to add, a quick thing is even parents. Okay, with a lot of young kids, you will have their mothers who would be young. Okay, they would come and they would speak nicely to you. You should remember you're a man and they are women and you're a professional there. Okay, that's what comes in between. But never forget that you're a man and some instinct will kick in. When you have, like I said, no, we cannot deny the fact that women are attractive and that's why they're called the beautiful, the fairer sex, right? It's because they are. We are not as pretty as them, and not as beautiful as them. But this is something we have to understand, acknowledge, and then keep it at home.
I want to add to this. Before you begin the treatment, just asking that, giving that woman the responsibility to inform you when she's feeling uncomfortable, or something like, it's a very typical line that I would say, please let me know if you feel anything uncomfortable.